Okay. So as you can see on the screen, the topic for today's sharing session is technical steps on how to search for the research theory. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, my name is Asmahany. So I just graduated from UUM in 2020. Okay, PhD in tourism and hospitality management. But my research interest is on event as tourism product, and then on green event management and also crisis management. Okay, so today's session, as I mentioned at the earlier session, today's session is for me to share my experience when I conduct my research during my PhD time. So this is how, or this is the techniques that I use whenever I want to search the theory that going to be used for my study. Okay, so as we can see on the screen, there will be a theoretical section in our PhD thesis, okay, and also in master thesis. Okay, so for my PhD thesis, but before that, is my voice is clear? Can you hear me?
Very clear, Doctor.
Okay, so in our thesis, especially in my thesis, the section part, I put it in section 2.7. Okay, so it is under supporting theories. Okay, so in my study, I use the combination or the integration of social action theory, theory of power, and also concept of trust. Okay, so as we can see here, the integration of two theories and one model. Okay, the reason that there are reasons why I integrate this theory is not because I'm happy to do that, but literature asked me to do so. Okay, the previous researchers, they recommend the future studies. Okay, they recommend so-called me to integrate this study to make sure that in order for me to understand the issues or to find the issues in my study, I have to integrate this theory so that the combination of the theory and concept can help to solve the problem that I wish to solve in my research. Okay, so here we can see theory is actually a concept or a philosophy that can help us to what we call the combination of context and content. Okay, it's actually theory can help us to explain or to solve the issues in our context. Okay, in my case, my context is in the context of festival as tourism development. Okay, but then when it comes to content is something that is we are going to solve. Okay, in my study, the content is on resident support. Okay, the inconsistency in the formation of resident support towards the use of festival as tourism attraction. Okay, so the issue here is on the inconsistency in the formation of resident support. Okay, so for me, I have to find a theory that can help me to understand why, okay, why that particular issue happened. Okay, why resident in destination A support the development of tourism, and why resident in destination B, they reject the development of tourism. Okay, so from here we can see that resident A support the formation, the use of festival as tourism attraction, and resident in destination B, they reject. But in another literature state that there's some resident, some of them support and some of them reject. Okay, so in that case we can see the inconsistency. Okay, because what we want is when we develop the tourism destination, we want resident to support. But case happened when the residents started to reject, they started to show their low support. Okay, so that is the issue in my study. Okay, so I have to find the theory that can help me to solve that particular issues. Okay, so in your study, for example, you notice that there is an issue, and then what are the theory that can help you to solve that particular issues? Okay, because our study, our certificate, we call it as philosophy. Okay, PhD is philosophy in what? Okay, so whatever decision that we make must be based on the theory. Okay, so if faculty gave me chances to examine any master's or PhD students' thesis, first thing that I will go and check is theoretical framework and how that particular student integrate, or how that particular student use the theory to solve the problem that he wished to solve through his or her research. Okay. Okay, so in my study, as you can see, this is very simple framework. Okay, I only have dependent variable, I only have dv, and I have a dimension that help or that influence the formation of resident support. Why I only have iv and dv? Because in my study, the contribution in my study is on scale development. Okay, so that is another story, okay, that we can discuss later on about the contribution in our study. Okay, so we have to bear in our mind that in PhD thesis or even in master thesis, we should not, okay, it's not compulsory for us to have a bombastic theoretical framework. Okay, the key here is the contribution. Okay, to what extent our PhD thesis can contribute, we should be clear where we can contribute. Okay, so if you see my if you check on the screen now, you can see only IVDV, but then I passed my PhD because I have my own contribution. Okay, the contribution is on skill development. Okay, so even though I only have IVDV, I still need to have a theory to support. Okay, so here you can see. Okay, so to explain to explain the formation of resident support in my study, the first thing first, I use social action theory. Okay, the dimension for social action theories are perceived benefit and also perceived cost. Okay, which means here, whoever researcher that use social action theory, they must use these two dimensions, perceived benefit and perceived cost. Okay, but let's say in your study you decide to use TPB, for example. So for the TPB, there must be three dimension, right? Okay, what is that? The TPB attitude, subjective norm, and also perceived behavioral control. Okay, so if any researcher ignore one of the dimension, let's say out of three, he only considered two dimension, so that is wrong. Okay, but then in my study, I consider use these two dimension because supposedly when we use social action theory, we should not neglect the perceived benefit and also perceived cost. Okay, so that is one part of my study. Okay, but then this is PhD thesis, so it's not enough if we just have only two variable, okay, to mention resident support. Okay, so then I make a searching, and then based on the literature suggests me to include this economic dependency on tourism as another dimension to measure resident support. There comes economic dependency on tourism. Okay, so when it comes to economic dependency on tourism, and then when I read the literature proposed to use theory of power. Okay, because if we in my context, okay, actually if you Google, there are a lot of definition on how to explain the theory of power. Okay, but in my context, theory of power defined as if we have no power, we will support the tourism, which means that no power here means if the resident in that particular destination, they depends on tourism economy, their income is based on tourism economy, they will support the tourism activities. Okay, but if they are government servant, most of them, okay, basically they reject the tourism development because, you know, when a lot of tourists come to our destination, there is another problem which they don't like. For example, traffic jam, crowded, pickpocket, and another issues. Okay, so when it comes to this research, those who dependents in tourism, they will support the tourism development. There comes theory of power. If we are powerless, so we will support the tourism development. Okay, then when I read the literature propose me to include political trust as another dimension for me. If I want to measure the resident support, I have to consider political trust. Then when I read, I cannot simply include that theory, that political trust. It must be based on something. So there comes trust concept. Okay, and then another variable, which is religiosity. Why I add on this religiosity? Because the context of my study is Kota Baru, Kelantan. Kelantan is known as Serambi Mekah, Islamic state. So it is relevant for me to consider religiosity to see whether level of religiosity influence the level of resident support towards the development of tourism destination, tourism development in Kota Baru. Okay, so this is actually the history, okay, from where and how I developed this particular framework. Okay, and then I take this is a snapshot from my Viva presentation. Okay, so why integrate the theories? As I mentioned earlier, the reason why I integrate the theories is because it was recommended by the previous studies. Okay, so same goes to you guys. If you have intention to integrate more than one study, you must have reason why. That reason must be academic reason, which is, for example, it is supported by the previous study, it is proposed by the previous researcher. Then I consider it as a good reasoning for us to combine or to use more than one theory. Okay. Now come to the stage how to search the theory. Okay, so based on my experience, I can conclude the theory search for our research based on these 5 steps. Okay, the first one, identify your DV or research objective. Okay, at this stage, how to say, I put it in a simple words. You only can search the theory for your PhD research only if and only when your supervisors approve your topic. Okay, when let's say when you see your supervisor, then supervisor say, okay, this topic is doable. Okay, I can see the gaps in that topic. Your problem statement is clear. There come a stage for you to search the theory. Okay, because let's say if I say in my study, the issues is I want to solve the inconsistency in the formation of resident support. Okay, so that is the issue. Okay, but then I cannot claim that is the problem. There must be a theory, there must be a support that explain why that situation happened. Okay, okay, so that comes to the stage where we have to be clear with our research objective. Okay, for my study, the research topic is resident support towards local culture festival in Kota Baru, Kelantan. Okay, so the dependent variable will be resident support. Okay, and then research expertise, resident support, and local culture festival development. Okay, and then when research expertise means when you graduate, you will be expert in this area. Okay, you will be expert in resident support, and you will be an expert in local cultural festival development, or specifically we call it expert in festival development. Okay, because when we do our PhD thesis, we have to thoroughly read the materials that are related to all of these two. Okay, resident support and also festival development. Okay, and then if we talk about the content is the resident support, and in the context of festival development, and also in Kota Baru perspective. Okay, okay, let's say your research objective is to examine resident support towards local culture festival development as tourist attractions. Okay, the first one. Okay, the first one is identify your DV, right? Okay, I should put here identify the DV. Okay, but then the second stage is search article from database. Okay, but then we have to, from our research objective, we have to identify our keyword. Okay, we have to identify the keyword, and we also have to identify the synonym words. Okay, we have to identify the keywords and also synonym words. Okay, distractions ungu kan. Okay, in my research objective, the resident support. Okay, we have to identify what are the synonym words for the resident support. Okay, so in my case, resident support is synonym with the host support, local support, and also community support. How do I know that these terms are synonyms? Because when we read the related article, we can see that previous researchers, they consistently use these words. Okay, they means they look for the residents, but they use the word host, sometimes they use the word local, and sometimes they use the word community. Okay, okay, so we identify resident support, host support, local support, and also community support. That is our first keyword. Okay, and then the second keyword is festival. Okay, normally in our area, festival, and sometimes people will use the word festivalization. Okay, and then sometimes the authors, they use, can you see the spelling? Can you detect the differences in terms of spelling? This is festivalization where the author use Z, and this is they use S. Okay, so those things also we have to consider in our searching. Okay, and then the third keyword will be tourism product. Okay, so the other synonym words for tourism product can be tourist attractions, can be tourism attractions. Okay, and then the fourth keyword, because we are looking for the theory, then we put the word theory, or we can put the word theories. Okay, so from here we can see that in this stage we have 4 different keywords to be used in Google Scholar. Okay, if you ask me about the search engine, where to find that particular article, first of all, you can, there's no right or wrong, or there's no specific database for you to search. Okay, let's say we decided to choose Google Scholar. Okay, and then you go to Google Scholar, you can see the right column here. Then you can go to Google Scholar and you search, you copy and paste this search string to the Google Scholar. And then you do the, do you want me to show how to find this? This is actually, I already done the screening where I only, what we call, limit the searching from 2018 until 2022. Okay, so based on that, I found 659 articles, okay, that were published using these keywords. And happy to say, the first articles appear my names. Okay, okay, this is accidentally, I don't plan this. Okay, okay, so based on the searching, and then you have to download all of these articles and put in Mendeley. Why Mendeley? Because Mendeley is a superb software tools, okay, that can help us to read the articles. Okay, okay, so let's say if you don't want to search in Google Scholar, then you can go to Science Direct, you can go to any other database, but okay, make sure. But then before that, you must, I know that you must be wonder, should you download all of these 600 articles? If you want to read all, then why not? Okay, but then because this is not a systematic literature review article writing, where we have to do a systematic screening. Okay, but at this stage, we just want to identify the theory. Okay, then that's not wrong. If you think that you want to read all, you can download all, especially you can go for the open access article you can download, or later you can transfer to Mandalay. Okay. Okay, we come back to this later on. Okay, this is another search string. Okay, and then you download the articles that you choose in that particular Google Scholar database, and then you open what we call a folder in Mandalay, let's say a theory folder, and then you put all of that article in Mandalay so that you can do reading in Mandalay. Okay. Okay, then you can download Mandalay from here, from this particular link. Okay, then after you do the reading, you have to come up with this table metric. Okay, let's say out of 600 articles, after you do a quick reading and you check the relevancy of the article, you notice that there's only 20 articles that are applicable to your area that you can read. Okay, let's say, for example, okay, so you have to read one by one that particular article and transfer the information into this table metric. Okay, for example, let's say for the first article, Su and Swanson, 2022, topic and variable. Let's say our issue is in the formation of resident support, right? So definitely the article that I use for this particular table metric are article that definitely focus on the formation of resident support. Okay, it is important for us to have this variable, to have this IV, independent variable, because it will help us to decide later on, if we decide to use this relational quality theory, we have to include this quality of life as one of the independent variable to measure resident support. Okay, the inconsistency use of the theory is not because it's not based on nothing. It's based on the independent variable that the researcher use in their study. Okay, you can see if the if the author, let's say the second study, Wang et al., they use community identity. Okay, for community identity, the possible theory can be cognition, affection, connection, relationship theory. But then, if the author decided to use another variable, perhaps the theory may be different. Okay, but then, if let's say this is our final table metric, and then we notice that out of 20 articles that we put in that table metric, majority of the scholars of the previous study, they use social action theory. That is a good indicator, that is a good sign telling that when we want to examine the resident support, social action theory is the best theory for us to use. Okay, why? Because it is used by the previous scholar. There must be a reason why those scholars use social action theory whenever they want to examine the resident support. Okay, the theory after social action theory is actually a complement theory. Okay, which is up to the variable that they want to use. If you still can remember at the earlier session, I showed that in my study, I use political theory of power and also concept of trust. Because my independent variable are economic dependency and political trust. Okay, but then if the researcher decided to use quality of life, perhaps when they want to examine quality of life, there's another theory for them to use. Okay, okay, so you cannot simply copy. Let's say previous study used relational quality theory, then you use relational quality theory. No, there's no such thing. Okay, it must be based on why that particular researcher used relational theory and why that particular researcher used CAC theory. Okay, and then the third column, as you can see here, journal name or journal ranking. I strongly, for my PhD student or for my master student, even my undergrad students, whenever they want to search the article for them to refer, I strongly, or I make it compulsory for them to check the ranking, the journal ranking. Okay, for here, you can just simply Google Simago in Google, then you can see the Simago website. and then you copy paste the journal name, and it will show you the ranking of that particular article. Okay, so for the purpose of this table metric, I strongly advise you to only use article that have quota Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. If let's say when you search the journal ranking in Simago, that journal is not appear, it means that that journal, I would say that journal is not good from my perspective, because it's not listed under Simago. Okay, Simago is what we call the well-known database for us to check the quality of the article, isn't it? Okay, so if that particular article is not listed under Simago, then why should we use it? Because we are at the stage of theory research. This stage is very important, because let's say if we wrongly pick theory for our PhD study, can you imagine what's going to happen? Okay, the possibility for you to reviva, to fail is very hard. Okay, because the theory will help us, the theory is strongly related to the theoretical framework. So just imagine that we develop a wrong theoretical framework from the literature base. Okay, we wrongly develop that particular framework, that's the end of the world. Okay, it can be reviva, but I would say fail. Okay, you have to restart everything all over again. Okay, so please take serious attention on the theory research. Okay. Okay, and then I talk about Simago just now. Theory. Okay, I hope you are clear why we have to search for the journal ranking and why we have to check which theory, okay, will represent which dimension or which variable in our study. Okay, then we come to the last slides for today, which is this one. Guys, are you still there?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you for the response. Okay, now we come to our last slide, which is we want to see the frequency. Okay, so based on the table metric, just imagine that you have read 50 or 20 articles, then out of the 20, out of 30, out of 10 Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 articles, you notice that to measure resident support, SET is the core theory that widely used by the previous authors. And then it shows that theory SET, social essence theory, is the theory for you to use. Okay, that is the basis. Okay, if so, Hafiz, can you please behave? Hafiz is my student actually. He's good, still deciding to continue his master, but he's here to learn. Okay, okay. So from here we can see the frequency. Okay, the most frequently used theory is a good sign to decide. Okay, and then if let's say you have another dimension, you have another independent variable, so I hope that you can do the same. Okay, to finalize the theory. Yeah, with that, I think that's all. Any questions? Actually, this process is quite how to say, is quite difficult if you treat this as difficult. But then if you treat that searching theory is very important level, you will do it with a happy feeling. Besides Simago, how about JCR? What is JCR, Mr. Pobalan? Jenna, what is JCR? Jenna, what is it? I'm not familiar with JCR, but I always check Simago. But if JCR is another platform for you to check the general ranking, then why not? Okay, the reason why we check the quota of the article is because we want to justify later on. Okay. Oh, journal citation report. Yes, if that how you decide on the theory finally based on the frequently used theory. Okay, if you can see here, my study is on resident support. Okay, let's say you see the yellow column there, theories used in support studies. It means that in support studies, most of the, I would say all, okay, except for this arrow at all, okay, the rest of the scholar, they use social action theory to examine support. Then in our study, we also can use social action theory. Okay, then when you get that hint, actually that is only the first step for you to decide. Okay, because let's say if you're coming from education school, okay, if you coming from education school, there's a lot of educational theory. There's a lot of education theory that you can use. Okay, in any area, there must be a lot of theory for you to use, right? So you must be confused, you must be lost. What should I do to search the theory? So I found that this is the best way by looking at the frequency. Okay, from here, you also can tell it as a pattern and trend. Okay, so in the justification, in that supporting theory section, you can say that based on the previous study, majority of the Q1 article or majority of the established majority of the article that published in an established journal, they use social action theory whenever they want to examine the formation of resident support. Okay, remember, if you can come up with this, I don't think the examiner have ability to what we call to argue where you get this theory. This is the answer. You can, in fact, you can show this final table metric to the, you can put this final table metric in your PhD thesis. I strongly recommend you to put this final table metric in that, in justifying why you choose this particular theory. Okay, and that's another section. So I hope I answered the question from Nozafifa. Okay, and then just interested to know how many articles at the screen to come with the final table metric of theory. Okay, this is for the sample. Okay, in research work, sometimes I always believe with instinct. Ataupun we call it as saturated point. Okay, after we do the searching, after we do some reading, like macam puluh-puluh or belas-belas article, we notice that we can see the pattern. We can have the feeling that, oh, majority of the researcher, when they want to examine resident support, they will use social action theory. Okay, so I will stop until I have that feeling. Okay, so there is no specific number of articles that you should read in order for you to find this theory. Okay, it is very useful to be, yes, I strongly recommend you to put this in the what we call PhD thesis. But before you come up with the thesis, you have to go the colloquium stage and proposal defense stage, right? Then just use this as justification. Same goes when you want to decide the variables or independent variable for your study. You also can see if, let's say, if you want to measure resident support, what are the dimensions used by the previous authors? And then you can use this table metric as well. If you want, if I want to tell you guys, every single action, every single decision that I want to make in my article writing, in research, I will start with this table metric. Okay, so that I can justify academically, because we have this data. Okay, and then from Indo, I use a theory which was frequently used by other. My supervisor asked me, what is my theoretical contribution? Okay, for example, agency theory for external audit related topics. My supervisor told me to use different theory from other area and modify to accounting topic. I find it difficult. Theoretical contribution, but I'm not sure why your supervisors ask you to use another theory if that particular theory is dominant in your area. Okay. Yes, so perhaps you can see, let's say from here, we can see one unique scholar. Let's say this Errol 2020, they also examine resident support in tourism area. But as you can see here, they use the theory of planned behavior. Okay, because support is part of the behavior, support is part of the action. Okay, so if let's say that particular researcher, they don't want to use social action theory, but then they want to use another theory, then maybe this is what your supervisors meant in do. Perhaps he want your thesis to, he don't want something like too common. Okay, if you want to search for resident support, everyone will use social action theory. Okay, so there comes what this is justified why we should come up with the final with this table metric, because as you can see here from arrow, they don't use social action theory, but then they use theory of planned behavior. Okay, so this is another interesting point. Let's say if you don't want to use social action theory, then you want to use theory of planned behavior to measure resident support, and then you must put another reasoning. Perhaps the reason is just like what Indu supervisor mentioned, because that theory is too common, but you have to go back and dig the original sources. What are the concepts behind the social action theory? What are the concepts behind the theory of planned behavior? If that particular theory can help you to solve that particular issue, then why not? Okay, so Indu, I go back to the original suggestion. I strongly advise you to come up with this sabermetric so that you will see the pattern. Okay, you can see the patterns, whether you want to go for the dominant one or you want to go for the minor. Okay, because from here theory of planned behavior is a minority, is under minority. Okay. Let's say for TPB, we only take 3 variables plus intention, including behavior, or we should include all framework. I see many studies that stop until intention, but then they just stop at theory of planned behavior. But then you really need to go and see the previous study how they do that. Okay, everything is based on justification. If you notice that there are some studies that publish in established journal that do that kind of practice, perhaps you can use that as your consideration. If let's say at the final stage there are several theories, let's say 2 theories that support different IV in my research, can I use both? You mean theory integration, right? 2 theories try to solve that support different IV. You mean you want to integrate the theory? Yes, if let's say the previous study they integrate these 2 theories, then why not? But again, if you attend Prof. Ramaya class, he strongly advised us to really careful when we want to merge or whenever we want to integrate the theory. Okay. Recap back. Which steps? Ahmad, which step, Mr. Ahmad, you want me to recap? Hello, which step? Okay, this is how, from begin. I will share the recording later on. I will share this recording in Boffin YouTube channel. Okay, just to mention to you guys, this session is fully sponsored by Boffin. Okay. Okay. Okay, and then what else? Is there any other question that you want to ask? You know, based on my experience, when you truly understand the concept or the process of doing SLR, there's a lot of things that you can do just by understanding the process of systematic literature review. Okay, so for this year 2021, okay, I managed to write 3 textbooks and then also a few articles, definitely based on systematic literature review. Okay, so I strongly advise, I strongly recommend each of you guys in this room to really equip yourself, to upgrade yourself with the SLR knowledge. Okay, because I consider this as I love doing SLR because it helps us to understand the topic or the niche area from the beginning, from the foundation. Because, you know, we have the chances to read articles from Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Okay, so let's say in my case, in UUM, I teach event management. So let's say if I want to talk about success factor of an event, so when I do systematic searching on success factor articles, there's a lot of information that I can see from the previous study. Okay, so when I go to class, I can happily talk to my student about the success factors because I read a lot of materials. Okay, no problem, Mr. Zahid. Is it originally of paper? Yeah, is it originality of paper same like novelty? Yes, yes. For me, it's the same thing. The originality, the novelty. What is the novelty of your thesis or something like that? So if you can integrate more than one theory with a proper academic justification, then that is a novelty and also the originality of your research. Okay, where you don't copy from somewhere else. Okay. May I know where we can find the list of theories that we can use from the table metric, my dear? Okay, so believe on the most frequently used theory. That is the key word. There is no specific book. I will say that is actually a textbook Prof. Ramaya used to share in his class. I have the textbook, and I believe that each of us that used to attend Prof. Ramaya class, we have the textbook. Okay, there are lists and there are explanation about the concept, about the theory. But for our study, I strongly recommend you to start with this table metric so that you can see which theory. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, this step is actually the earliest step to decide the theory. Okay, if you see that this theory is frequently used in your study, it's not a guarantee for you to use this theory because we still need to go and dig the original sources of this theory so that we can really understand the concept behind that particular theory. Okay. Dulu rasa pelik kenapa nak buat SLR kena ada research objective, bukan dalam proposal je ke ada. Okay. Yes, we should have the research objective because SLR is the systematic literature review, means that we systematically search that article, right? But then if we don't have the specific research objective, macam mana kita nak cari? Kita tak ada tujuan, kan? Because when we do the SLR, we have to search for the synonym words. So kalau kita tak ada niche area, kalau kita tak ada specific topic, macam mana kita nak search, kan? Memang banyak sangat artikel dekat database. So memang susah nak cari kalau tak ada database. Okay, how to get the textbook, tajuk buku. Oh, nanti saya share dekat group Telegram. Okay, any other question from friends? Just one thing, tomorrow there will be a session on how to write article using systematic literature review. Step by step, I will share step by step on how to write the article using systematic literature review. Okay, our admin, I believe that he already shared the poster in the group. So if you wish to know more on how to write an article using SLR, I see you tomorrow. Okay. Then another question. Let's say theory A has 3 variables and has been widely used in majority of previous research. But my research only has 2 variables that related to theory A. Well, another variable that's not related. there must be something wrong, because if you decided to use this theory, let's say TPB, you cannot ignore any of the dimension. You cannot ignore any of the variable. Okay, because to design a car, okay, dia mesti kena ada tire, dia mesti kena ada steering, mesti kena ada bumbung. But then kita miss tire. Tak cukup kan? Tak complete dia punya, maksudnya dia tak membawa, dia tak menerangkan konsep kereta tersebut. But then if you pick a theory, let's say social action theory, dia ada dua, perceived benefit and perceived cost. But then you neglect one of that. So dia tak melambangkan social action theory. Sama juga macam TPB, dia ada 3 variable, but then you buang satu je. Dia tak melambangkan. Sama juga macam marketing mix. We have 4 P's, right? The very basic marketing mix, we have 4 P's. But suddenly you only take 2 P's. So it's not represent the marketing mix concept. Okay. So I strongly recommend you to check back the variable that you decide. Is it possible to take out? No, it's not possible. If you decided to use that particular theory, maksudnya is explain a concept. It represents something. So we cannot miss, based on my understanding from attending prof classes, we cannot miss any of that variable or dimension. Okay. Any other question? If there's no question, I would like to say thank you to each of you guys for lending your ears to listen to my sharing session. I appreciate your time and energy. Okay. Yeah, so I'll see you tomorrow if you decided to enroll in the SLR article class. If not, I'll see you next time. Okay, and I will share what we call the Telegram YouTube, Boffin YouTube link. That is a non-for-profit YouTube link. All of our free session classes that we hosted before, we posted in that YouTube. Okay. Okay, thanks everyone. I see you next time.